She stood at the altar in front of 300 guests when her groom grabbed the microphone and called their marriage a pity project. Humiliated, she ran. What she didn't know, her late father's biker brothers had just seen the video go viral, and they were already on their way. The cathedral smelled like roses and lies. Samantha Chun stood at the altar in a dress that cost more than her first car, feeling the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on her back. The afternoon sun streamed through stained glass windows, painting her white gown in shades of amber and gold. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale. She felt like a lamb at slaughter. Tyler Morrison stood across from her in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, that practiced smile plastered across his face, the one he used for investors, for cameras, for anyone who mattered. His perfect teeth gleamed. His hair was gelled into submission. Everything about him screamed success, control, perfection. Everything except his eyes. Those cold blue eyes that had been getting colder for months. "We are gathered here today," Father Williams began, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, "to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." Tyler's best man handed him the microphone. That wasn't part of the ceremony. Samantha's stomach dropped. "Actually, Father, if I could just say something first?" Tyler's voice boomed through the speakers, smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. Samantha felt her smile freeze. "Tyler, what are you? I just want everyone here to know." He turned to face the crowd, mic in hand like a comedian working a room. "How incredibly brave my bride is today." Nervous laughter rippled through the pews. Samantha's mother leaned forward in the front row, confused. Tyler's groomsmen were already smirking, like they were in on a joke she hadn't heard yet. "I mean, it takes real courage to squeeze into a wedding dress when you've gained, what, 30 pounds since we got engaged." His grin widened. "But hey, that's what Spanx are for, right?" The cathedral went silent. Deadly, terrible silent. Samantha couldn't breathe. The words hit her like physical blows. Around her, the world seemed to tilt and blur. "Tyler," she whispered, but he wasn't done. "Let's be honest, folks. This whole thing," he gestured between them with the microphone, "it's basically a pity project. My parents thought I should settle down, and Sam here needed someone to rescue her from that dead-end life of hers. Her dad's gone. The garage is bleeding money, and let's face it, at 32, she wasn't exactly drowning in options." Someone gasped. It might have been her mother. It might have been her. His groomsmen were laughing now. Actually laughing. Tyler's college buddies, Chad, Brad, and whatever the third one's name was, doubled over in their matching tuxedos like this was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. So I figured, why not? I'll take one for the team. Marry the chubby girl with daddy issues. Make myself look like a saint. Win-win, right? The microphone feedback screamed through the speakers. Something inside Samantha snapped. Not broke, snapped. Like a steel cable pulled too tight for too long. Her hands moved before her brain caught up. She ripped the veil from her head, bobby pins scattering across the marble floor like shrapnel. The delicate lace tore in her grip. She didn't care. "You absolute bastard," she said, and her voice didn't shake. It cut. Tyler's smile faltered. "Sam, come on. It's just a joke." "A joke?" She laughed, and it sounded nothing like her. "You humiliate me in front of 300 people and call it a joke." She threw the veil in his face and turned, her dress catching on the altar steps. She heard it rip, a long, satisfying tear, as she stumbled forward. Guests scattered out of her way like she was on fire. Maybe she was. "Samantha, wait." Her mother's voice, desperate and afraid. She didn't wait. She couldn't. If she stopped moving, she would collapse, and she refused to give Tyler that satisfaction. The cathedral doors were massive, 12 feet of carved oak that weighed a ton. She hit them with both hands, and they flew open, slamming against the exterior walls with a boom that echoed across the plaza. Camera flashes exploded in her face. The press. Tyler had invited the press to their wedding. Of course he had. This was supposed to be his moment. Successful entrepreneur marries childhood sweetheart, cementing his image as a family man before his company's IPO next month. Except now they were getting a different story entirely. Miss Chun, can you comment? Did you know about the prenup conditions? Is it true your father's garage is in foreclosure?" She ran. The dress made it nearly impossible, layers of tulle and satin tangling around her legs, but she ran anyway. Her heels caught on cobblestones, and she kicked them off, sending a $400 pair of Louboutins skittering across the plaza. Behind her, she heard Tyler shouting something about emotional instability and calling her mother. She made it to her car, a beat-up Honda Civic that looked ridiculous parked among the Mercedes and Teslas, and locked herself inside. Her hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. The engine coughed to life. Through the windshield, she could see the crowd spilling out of the cathedral. Tyler's parents, her mother, crying, the groomsmen still laughing, and Tyler himself, phone pressed to his ear, probably already calling his PR team to spin this disaster. She threw the car in reverse and peeled out. The last thing she saw in the rearview mirror was a photographer capturing the moment. Samantha Chun, runaway bride, mascara streaked and broken, fleeing her own wedding in a torn dress and bare feet. By the time she hit the highway, her phone was exploding with notifications, text messages, calls, emails, social media alerts. She pulled over at a rest stop and made the mistake of checking. The video was already online. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing. Tyler's joke, her reaction, the dramatic exit, everything. Hashtag wedding disaster was trending. So was hashtag pity project. The comments were brutal, divided between people defending her and people calling her oversensitive, saying she couldn't take a joke, that Tyler had dodged a bullet. Samantha sat in that rest stop parking lot as the sun set, still wearing her destroyed wedding dress, and watched her humiliation go viral in real time. 300,000 views. 500,000. A million. Her phone rang. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. She threw the phone out the window. Then she started driving, and she didn't stop until the cathedral and Tyler Morrison were 100 miles behind her. She had no idea that 100 miles away, in a garage that smelled like motor oil and memories, a man named Hawk was watching that same video with murder in his eyes and a promise on his lips. The Starlight Motel wasn't in any travel guides. It didn't have a website. The neon sign out front flickered between V_NCY and complete darkness, and the parking lot was more pothole than pavement. Perfect. Samantha paid cash for 3 nights, using a name she made up on the spot. The clerk, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and the grace not to ask questions, slid a key across the counter without comment, though her gaze lingered on the ruined wedding dress. Room 12 smelled like cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The bedspread was a floral pattern that had been out of style since the 90s. The TV got 6 channels if you held the antenna just right. Samantha had never been more grateful for a place in her entire life. She peeled off the dress, leaving it in a heap on the bathroom floor like a shed skin. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in black rivers. Her carefully styled hair had come loose, hanging in tangled waves around her face. The Spanx Tyler had mocked left angry red marks across her ribs. She stood under the shower until the water ran cold, then wrapped herself in the scratchy motel towel and collapsed onto the bed. Her phone, the replacement she'd bought at a gas station, stayed mercifully silent. No one had this number. No one knew where she was. For the first time in 12 hours, she could breathe. 300 miles away, in a garage outside Charlotte that doubled as the Iron Saints MC clubhouse, Hawk Martinez watched the wedding video for the 7th time. Each viewing made his blood boil hotter. He was a mountain of a man, 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle and scar tissue, with a gray beard that reached his chest and hands that could crush a skull or rebuild a carburetor with equal skill. Right now, those hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. That piece of shit, rumbled Reaper, the club's sergeant-at-arms, watching over Hawk's shoulder. That's Danny's little girl. I know exactly who she is. Hawk's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. He'd known Samantha since she was 6 years old, back when Danny Chun had saved his life during a bar fight gone wrong. They'd been brothers after that, not by blood, but by something stronger. When Danny died 3 years ago, Hawk had made a promise at the funeral. Take care of my girl. She's all I've got. Hawk had tried. He'd called, sent money when the garage started failing, offered help a dozen different ways. But Samantha had been with Tyler by then. and Tyler had convinced her she didn't need those people in her life anymore. That she was better than her father's world of grease and chrome and men who lived by a code Tyler would never understand. Call everyone, Hawk said, standing up so fast his chair toppled backward. I don't care where they are or what they're doing. Emergency church. 1 hour. Reaper's eyebrows shot up. Everyone. Every single saint. Every chapter. Every state. And call the nomads. Hawk pulled his cut, his leather vest covered in patches and memories, from the back of his chair and shrugged it on. We made Danny a promise. Time to keep it. Within an hour, the garage was packed. Bikers poured in from Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, the Carolinas. They came on Harleys and Indians and custom-built choppers that roared like thunder. By the time the meeting started, there were 100 men and women crowded into the space, with more arriving every minute. Hawk stood on a workbench so everyone could see him. The room fell silent. Most of you knew Danny Chun. His voice carried to every corner. Some of you owed him money. Some of you owed him your lives. All of you owed him respect, because that's the kind of man he was. Heads nodded. Someone in the back muttered agreement. 3 years ago, we buried him. And we all swore the same thing. We'd protect what he loved. Hawk pulled out his phone and held it up, the wedding video frozen on Samantha's tear-streaked face. This is Danny's daughter. Today, some trust fund pretty boy humiliated her in front of the whole damn world. Made her a joke. Made her father's legacy a punchline. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Now, we could let that slide. We could say it's not our business, that she's a grown woman who can handle her own problems. Hawk's eyes swept the crowd. Or we could remember that we're the Iron Saints. And the Saints don't abandon family. What's the play? Called out Tiny, a 6'6" enforcer from the Asheville chapter. Hawk smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I made some calls. Turns out Tyler Morrison isn't just an asshole. He's a criminal. Fake charities, shell companies, bribed inspectors. He's built his whole empire on lies. He cracked his knuckles. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to find Danny's girl. We're going to remind her who she really is. And then we're going to burn that bastard's world to the ground. The room erupted in agreement. Shouts, fists pounding on tables, engines revving outside. 300 bikers, united by a single purpose. Tyler Morrison had no idea what was coming. The abandoned quarry sat 30 miles outside city limits, hidden behind a stretch of pine forest that hadn't seen a logging crew in decades. It was the kind of place that didn't exist on maps, just a gouged-out wound in the earth where the Iron Saints held their most important meetings, far from curious eyes and cell phone towers. By midnight, the quarry was packed. 300 motorcycles lined the rim like chrome sentinels, their engines ticking as they cooled. Bonfires blazed in steel drums, casting dancing shadows across weathered faces. These weren't weekend warriors or cosplay bikers. These were lifers. Men and women who'd bled for the patch on their backs and would do it again without hesitation. Hawk stood on a flatbed trailer in the center of it all, a tactical map spread across a folding table behind him. Beside him stood Ghost, the club's resident tech expert, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a dragon tattoo that wrapped around his bald head. Listen up. Hawk's voice cut through the rumble of conversation. We've got 72 hours to pull this off. After that, Tyler's company goes public and his money gets distributed across 100 different accounts we'll never touch. So we move fast, we move smart, and we don't leave fingerprints. Ghost tapped his laptop, projecting images onto a white sheet hung between two poles. Tyler's face appeared, then diagrams of his company structure, financial records, property deeds. Tyler Morrison owns Morrison Tech Solutions, software development, government contracts, the works, Ghost said, his voice soft but clear. On paper, it's worth $40 million. In reality, it's a house of cards. 12 shell companies, 6 fake charities funneling money through offshore accounts, and at least 3 bribed city inspectors who approved building codes that should have failed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. How'd you get all this? Asked Chains, a heavy-set enforcer from the Raleigh chapter. Ghost grinned. Tyler's head of IT is an idiot who uses password 123 for everything. I've had access to their servers for about 3 hours now. Laughter erupted. Dark, hungry laughter. Here's the beautiful part. Hawk said, stepping forward. Tyler's built his reputation on being a philanthropist. Every magazine profile talks about his charity work, his donations, his commitment to the community. Except none of it's real. The homeless shelter he supposedly funded? Never got a dime. The veterans program? Ghost found invoices for events that never happened, money that got rerouted to Tyler's personal accounts. So we expose him, said Reaper. Leak everything to the press. That's phase 1, Hawk pointed to the map. But we go deeper. Tyler's got 50 classic cars in a private garage downtown. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, a 1967 Shelby Cobra worth $500,000 alone. All of them equipped with GPS tracking for insurance purposes. Ghost's grin widened. Which I now control. Tomorrow morning, every single one of those cars is going to drive itself to the county courthouse and park on the steps. Engines running, doors locked, GPS disabled. Let him explain that to the media when they show up for his fraud hearing. The crowd roared approval. Phase 2. Hawk continued. We hit his investors. Ghost is going to release documents showing Morrison Tech's government contracts were obtained through bribes. SEC violations, fraud, tax evasion, the works. By tomorrow afternoon, his stock price will be in free fall. In Phase 3, asked Valkyrie, the president of the all-female Daughters of Iron chapter. Hawk's expression hardened. Phase 3 is personal. We find Samantha. The problem was, nobody knew where she'd gone. Hawk had called her mother that afternoon. A tense, difficult conversation where Mrs. Chin alternated between sobbing and blaming herself. Samantha hadn't contacted anyone. Her credit cards hadn't been used. Her phone was off. She'd vanished. Smart girl, Reaper had muttered. Knows how to disappear. But it also meant they couldn't help her if they couldn't find her. At 2 a.m., Hawk's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Found her. Credit card purchase at gas station off I-85, exit 47. 30 minutes ago. She's heading north. Hawk stared at the message, then at the name that appeared beneath it, Sarah Chun. Samantha's mother. A second text came through. Tyler's family is trying to get a conservatorship. They're claiming she's mentally unstable, that she needs professional help. They want control of Danny's estate. The garage, the properties, everything. They're filing paperwork Monday morning. Hawk's blood turned to ice. So that was Tyler's play. Humiliate Samantha publicly, paint her as unstable, then have his lawyer parents seize everything she had left. Clean, efficient, legal. A third text, please. Save my daughter. Danny would have wanted you to. Hawk looked up at the 300 bikers waiting for orders. At Ghost, who'd already started tracking every digital footprint Tyler Morrison had ever made. At Reaper, cracking his knuckles in anticipation. At Valkyrie, checking her switchblade with cold precision. Change of plans, Hawk announced. We split up. Ghost, you and 50 bikes stay here and start the digital assault. Everyone else rides with me. We find Samantha before Tyler's people do. He grabbed his helmet. And when we do, she's going to learn what it means to be Danny Chen's daughter. She's going to learn that she's not alone. And she's damn sure going to learn that nobody messes with Iron Saint's family and walks away clean. 300 engines roared to life, shattering the night. The hunt was on. Dawn broke cold and gray over Interstate 85. Samantha pulled into the Sunshine Gas and Go just as the first light touched the horizon, her Honda running on fumes and prayers. She'd driven through the night, no destination in mind, just movement, away from the cathedral, away from the cameras, away from the wreckage of her life. The gas station was one of those lonely outposts that serviced truckers and insomniacs, flickering fluorescent lights, a clerk behind bulletproof glass, and coffee that tasted like burnt regret. Perfect. She prepaid for gas in cash and stood by the pump, watching the numbers climb. Her reflection in the car window was a stranger, hair in a messy ponytail, wearing truck stop clothes she'd bought yesterday, eyes hollow with exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. Her mother, for the 40th time. Samantha stared at it, thumb hovering over the answer button. Then she heard it. A rumble, distant at first, like thunder rolling in from miles away. She looked up. The horizon was moving. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, heat shimmer, road mirage. But the sound grew louder, deeper, until she felt it in her chest like a second heartbeat. The ground itself seemed to vibrate. Then they appeared. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. No, hundreds of them. They poured over the rise like a chrome tsunami, headlights cutting through the dawn mist, exhaust pipes roaring in perfect, terrible harmony. Samantha's heart stopped. The bikes surrounded the gas station in a choreographed sweep that would have made a military unit jealous. They formed concentric circles, boxing her in, engines idling in a growl that made her bones vibrate. Cut-wearing bikers dismounted in unison, leather creaking, boots hitting pavement. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. A man the size of a small building walked through the crowd. Gray beard, Iron Saint's patch, eyes that held a lifetime of road miles and harder choices. Hello, Samantha. That voice. God, she knew that voice. Uncle Hawk. The childhood nickname slipped out before she could stop it. He stopped 3 feet away, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then his expression cracked, just slightly. Your daddy would have been proud of you. Walking away from that bastard took guts. Proud. She laughed, and it came out broken. I'm a viral video. A meme. The pathetic fat girl who couldn't take a joke. You're Danny Chen's daughter. Hawk's voice went hard as steel. And you're about to remember what that means. I just want to disappear. Samantha gestured at her car. I was going to Vancouver. Start over. Forget any of this ever. Tyler's family is filing for conservatorship Monday morning. The words hit like a physical blow. What? His parents. Both lawyers. They're claiming you're mentally unstable. That yesterday proves you need professional intervention. Hawk pulled out his phone, showing her legal documents Ghost had intercepted. They want control of your father's estate. The garage. The properties. Everything. Samantha's vision blurred. They can't. They can. And they will. Unless you fight back. Hawk pocketed the phone. Your daddy built that garage from nothing. 40 years of sweat and blood. And these parasites want to take it because their golden boy made you a laughingstock and you had the audacity to say no. Around them, 300 bikers stood silent, watching, waiting. I can't fight them, Samantha whispered. Look at me. I'm nobody. They have money, lawyers, connections. You have us. The voice came from behind Hawk. A woman stepped forward, tall, platinum blonde, with a scar running through her left eyebrow and the daughters of Iron Patch on her cut. Valkyrie, the woman introduced herself. Your dad pulled my brother out of a burning truck in '09. Saved his life. She gestured at the crowd. Every person here owes Danny Chun. Some of us owe him money. Some of us owe him blood. All of us owe him respect. Another biker stepped forward. Reaper. Danny taught me how to rebuild my first engine. Gave me a job when nobody else would. Ghost. Danny lent my family $5,000 when we lost our house. Never asked for it back. Chains. Danny. Tiny. One by one, they came forward. Shared their stories. Their debts. Their memories of a man who'd been more than just a mechanic. He'd been a lifeline. Samantha's throat closed up. She'd forgotten. In the 3 years since the funeral, dating Tyler, trying to fit into his sterile world of country clubs and corporate dinners, she'd forgotten what her father had really meant. Not just to her, but to dozens, hundreds, of people whose lives he'd touched. We don't ride for revenge, Hawk said quietly. We ride for family. And your family, Samantha, always have been, always will be. She looked at her car. At the highway stretching north toward Vancouver in anonymous freedom. Then she looked at the 300 bikers surrounding her. At their cuts bearing her father's memory. At Hawk, who'd been her father's best friend, who'd tried to stay in her life even when Tyler had pushed him away. What do I have to do? Hawk smiled. It was a wolf's smile, all teeth and promise. First, you're going to eat some breakfast. Can't fight a war on an empty stomach. He nodded toward a diner across the highway. Then we're going to teach you how a Chun really handles business. And Tyler Morrison is about to learn why you don't mess with the Iron Saints. Tyler Morrison's Monday morning started with champagne and confidence. He stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor of Morrison Tower, admiring the city sprawled beneath him like a kingdom. The wedding disaster had been contained. His PR team had spun it as a misunderstood joke, and half the internet was already defending him. Samantha was missing, which made her look unstable. His parents' conservatorship filing would go through without a hitch. By Friday, he'd own everything Danny Chun had built, and Samantha would be nothing but a cautionary tale about women who couldn't handle successful men. His phone buzzed. Brad, his best man. Dude, turn on Channel 7. Tyler grabbed the remote, flipping to the morning news. The anchor wore an expression of barely contained glee. Bizarre scene at the county courthouse this morning, where 50 luxury vehicles appeared overnight, all registered to tech entrepreneur Tyler Morrison. The cars, worth an estimated $20 million, were found parked on the courthouse steps with engines running and doors locked. Police are investigating how. The remote slipped from Tyler's fingers. What the hell? He grabbed his phone, dialing his garage manager. It went straight to voicemail. He tried his head of security. Same thing. His office door burst open. Janet Chun, his head of operations, looked panicked. Tyler, we have a problem. Someone's leaked internal documents to the SEC, financial records, email chains, contract negotiations, everything. What do you mean everything? She thrust a tablet at him. His own emails filled the screen. Messages to his father about bribing city inspectors. Invoices for charity events that never happened. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. 5 years of carefully hidden crimes, exposed in a single morning. How? Tyler's voice cracked. How is this possible? It gets worse. Janet pulled up her phone. Twitter. Look, hashtag Morrison Exposed was trending worldwide. Ghost had timed the leak perfectly. 8 a.m. East Coast time, right when journalists were hunting for stories. The documents were being picked apart by forensic accountants, lawyers, and internet sleuths who'd suddenly made it their mission to destroy him. Tyler's hands shook as he scrolled through the carnage. Morrison Tech's homeless shelter donation. Fake. Money went to Tyler's vacation home in Aruba. Those veteran programs? Never existed. Just tax write-offs. Government contracts obtained through Daddy's connections and $500,000 in bribes. His phone exploded with calls. Investors. Board members. His parents. He answered his father's call. Dad, I can explain. Shut up. Richard Morrison's voice could freeze nitrogen. The SEC is launching a formal investigation. 3 board members just resigned. Our stock is down 40% and still falling. What the hell did you do? Someone hacked us. Someone. Fix it. Today. Or you're done. The line went dead. Tyler stood frozen, his perfect world crumbling around him like a sandcastle in a tsunami. 200 miles away, in the back room of Danny's garage, Samantha watched it all unfold on Ghost's laptop array. Stocks at $12 and dropping, Ghost reported, fingers dancing across 3 keyboards simultaneously. Investors are panicking. Message boards are calling for his head. Phase 2. Hawk asked. Launching now. Ghost hit enter, and somewhere in cyberspace, 1,000 carefully crafted emails went out. To journalists. To regulatory agencies. To every business partner Morrison Tech had ever screwed over. Each email contained irrefutable evidence of fraud, bribery, and tax evasion, all tied together with a bow. Samantha felt nothing. She'd thought she'd feel satisfaction, or rage, or something. Instead, there was just a cold, hollow clarity. This was what Tyler had done to people for years, destroyed them methodically, legally, with a smile on his face. Now he was getting a taste of his own medicine. The cars were a nice touch, Valkyrie said, grinning. TMZ is having a field day with that. Wait, Reaper held up his phone. You're going to want to see this. He turned the screen around. A news alert. Morrison Tech offices raided by FBI. Agents seen removing boxes of documents. The room erupted in cheers. Hawk caught Samantha's eye. How you holding up? He tried to take everything from me, she said quietly. My dignity. My father's legacy. My future. She looked at the screens showing Tyler's empire imploding in real time. But he never realized who he was messing with. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Samantha, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Let's meet and discuss this reasonably. Tyler. She showed it to Hawk. He laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. He wants to negotiate. What should I tell him? Hawk's smile turned predatory. Tell him you'll meet him. Tomorrow night. His family estate. His post-wedding reception. He's still having that. Oh, he'll have it. His parents are forcing him to keep up appearances while they try to contain the damage, Hawk cracked his knuckles. Only this time, he's going to get some unexpected guests. Samantha typed out a response. Fine. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Come alone. She hit send and looked up at the 300 bikers who'd rallied for her father's memory, who'd spent the last 24 hours systematically destroying the man who'd tried to destroy her. What's Phase 3? She asked. Hawk's grin could have split stone. Phase 3 is where you walk into that mansion, look Tyler Morrison in the eye, and show him exactly what a chun is made of. And we'll be right behind you. All 300 of you. Every single one. For the first time since she'd fled that altar, Samantha smiled. It was a dangerous smile. Her father's smile. Then let's finish this. The Morrison estate sat on 20 acres of manicured perfection, white columns, fountain centerpiece, gardens that required a full-time staff of 12. Old money trying desperately to look like older money. Tonight, it was lit up like a movie premiere. Tyler's parents had insisted on the reception despite everything. Damage control, they'd called it. Show the world the Morrisons don't run from adversity. Invite the right people, smile for the cameras, pretend the empire wasn't burning. Over 200 guests milled around in designer clothes, sipping champagne and whispering about the scandal. News vans lined the street outside, cameras ready to capture whatever spectacle the evening might bring. Tyler stood near the bar, his third whiskey in hand, watching his mother work the crowd with surgical precision. Margaret Morrison had that politician's wife smile down to a science. Warm, reassuring, completely fake. His phone buzzed. Samantha, outside. Coming in. He drained his glass. Finally, he'd explain everything was a misunderstanding. Offer her a generous settlement. Make this all go away. Women like Samantha always had a price. The crowd's chatter suddenly died. Tyler turned toward the entrance. Samantha stood in the doorway, backlit by the chandelier light. She wasn't wearing a cocktail dress or the broken wedding gown. She wore jeans, a black leather jacket, and boots that had seen real miles. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no pretense. She looked nothing like the woman he'd humiliated at the altar. She looked dangerous. Sam, Tyler set down his glass, putting on his most charming smile. I'm glad you came. We should talk privately. No. Her voice carried across the silent room. We talk here, in front of everyone, like you did to me. His smile faltered. Sam, come on, don't be dramatic. You call me a pity project. At our wedding, in front of 300 people, she walked toward him, boots clicking on marble. You mocked my weight, my father's business, my life, and you called it a joke. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Phones appeared, already recording. It was poor taste, I admit. Tyler's PR training kicked in. I've been under tremendous stress with the company, and I made a terrible mistake. But Sam, the things you've done since then, the things I've done. She laughed. Tyler, I haven't done anything. I've been eating truck stop food and sleeping in motels. But someone, she glanced around the room. Someone seems to have exposed your little empire for what it really is. Fraud, bribery, fake charities. That's not me. That's just your sins coming home to roost. Those allegations are backed by 5 years of your own emails and financial records. Samantha pulled out her phone. Would you like me to read a few? I've got them right here. My personal favorite is the one where you tell your father that marrying me was worth it for the real estate alone. Tyler's face went white. Around the room, guests murmured. His mother's smile had finally cracked. You hacked my company. No. But someone who actually knows what they're doing did. Samantha stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen, Tyler. You're going to drop the conservatorship. You're going to sign documents stating you have no claim to my father's estate. And you're going to do it right now, in front of all these witnesses. Or what? Tyler's voice dripped with contempt. You'll have your biker friends beat me up? This is America, Sam. We have laws. My parents are attorneys, the best attorneys. You think some leaked documents are going to? The sound hit like a physical force. Thunder. Deep, resonant thunder that rattled the windows and made the champagne flutes vibrate on their trays. Every head turned toward the windows. Through the glass, they could see them coming up the long driveway. Motorcycles. Hundreds of motorcycles, headlights cutting through the darkness like an invading army. They came in formation, precise and overwhelming, surrounding the mansion in a perfect perimeter. The thunder of engines shook the foundation itself. Guests rushed to the windows. Someone screamed. Tyler's security team reached for their phones, then froze. What were they going to do against 300 bikers? The engines cut simultaneously. Silence crashed down like a hammer. The front doors opened, and Hawk walked in. He had to duck through the doorway. Behind him came Reaper, Valkyrie, Ghost, and a dozen other Iron Saints, their cuts on full display. They didn't threaten anyone, didn't touch anything. They just stood there, filling the entrance hall with a presence that made Tyler's expensive security look like mall cops. Evening, folks. Hawk's voice was conversational, almost friendly. Don't mind us. We're just here for moral support. Continue your party. Tyler's father, Richard Morrison, stepped forward. This is private property. You're trespassing. No, sir, we're not. Ghost held up his phone. We're standing on the public easement, which runs right through your driveway. Check the property records myself. We're perfectly legal. Hawk walked over to Tyler, who'd gone pale as milk. The biker leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. You see these people behind me? Every single one of them loved Danny Chun. He saved their lives, gave them purpose, treated them like family. Hawk's eyes were cold as winter. You tried to take everything from his daughter. You tried to erase his legacy. That was your first mistake. What was my second? Tyler's voice cracked. Thinking we'd let you. Hawk pulled out a folder and dropped it on the nearest table. Legal documents spilled out. That's a court injunction, filed this afternoon. Signed by Judge Patricia Reynolds, who, coincidentally, Danny Chun helped when her son got arrested 15 years ago. That injunction blocks any conservatorship filing, freezes your parents' claim, and protects Samantha's assets. He smiled. Your lawyers will find their own copies in the morning, along with about 40 more legal problems we've been cooking up. Margaret Morrison grabbed the documents, her face cycling through shock, rage, and fear. This is extortion. No, ma'am. Samantha stepped forward. This is justice. Your son tried to destroy me. Instead, he destroyed himself. She turned to Tyler. Sign the papers. Or tomorrow, Ghost releases the videos. What videos? Ghost's grin was all teeth. The ones from your office security cameras. You'd be amazed what people say when they think they're alone. Tyler looked at his parents. At the guests recording everything. At the 300 bikers outside. He was trapped, and he knew it. Where do I sign? The next 72 hours were a masterclass in systematic destruction. Wednesday morning started with the Wall Street Journal running a front-page exposé titled Morrison Tech, How a Silicon Valley Darling Built an Empire on Lies. The article, sourced from Ghost's leaked documents, detailed every bribe, every fake charity, every fraudulent contract. By noon, Morrison Tech stock had dropped to $3 per share. By close of trading, it was delisted. Tyler watched it happen from his apartment, having been escorted out of his own office by FBI agents the day before. His executive parking spot was already occupied by his replacement. Thursday brought the dominoes. The SEC filed formal charges: wire fraud, securities fraud, tax evasion. 3 federal agencies announced coordinated investigations. Morrison Tech's board voted unanimously to remove Tyler as CEO and ban him from any future leadership role. His father's law firm, trying to distance themselves from the scandal, issued a statement calling Tyler's actions deeply troubling and contrary to our values. Even his own parents were cutting ties. But the Iron Saints weren't finished. Ghost had spent 3 days combing through every digital footprint Tyler Morrison had ever left. What he found was a gold mine of ammunition. Check this out, Ghost said, pulling up security footage on his laptop. The Iron Saints had taken over a conference room at Danny's garage, turning it into a war room covered in screens and evidence boards. The video showed Tyler in his office, talking to his groomsmen 2 weeks before the wedding. Whole thing's a calculation. Brothers marry the desperate girl, look like a saint, absorb her dad's property portfolio once I get conservatorship. The best part? She's so insecure, she'll probably thank me for marrying her. Laughter from Brad and Chad off screen. What if she says no? Then I humiliate her publicly, paint her as unstable, and still get the conservatorship. Either way, I win. Samantha watched the video, her expression carved from stone. She'd suspected, of course. But hearing it laid out so clinically, so cruelly, it still stung. "When does this go public?" she asked. "Already did." Ghost checked his phone. "Posted to Twitter 20 minutes ago. It's at 2 million views and climbing." The reaction was instantaneous and vicious. Hashtag Tyler Morrison is over party trended globally within an hour. Celebrities weighed in. Think pieces flooded Medium and Substack. Tyler's Instagram, once filled with admiring comments, became a war zone of condemnation. But the real damage came from something unexpected. By Thursday afternoon, 11 women had come forward with their own stories. Ex-girlfriends, former colleagues, women Tyler had dated and discarded. Each one described the same pattern: love bombing, manipulation, financial exploitation, public humiliation when they no longer served his purposes. "He told me I was lucky he was dating me," one woman told a local news station. "That no one else would want someone with my issues, then he tried to get me to sign over my trust fund." Another: "He proposed to me 6 months before Samantha. I said no because something felt wrong. He told everyone I was crazy, that I'd stalked him. I lost friends, my job. Now I know he does this to everyone." The floodgates had opened. Tyler Morrison wasn't just a fraud. He was a predator with a decade-long pattern of abuse. By Friday morning, every sponsor had pulled out. Every business partner had severed ties. His social media accounts were deleted, though not before screenshots of his most damning posts circulated forever. The Morrison family released a terse statement. "Tyler Morrison no longer represents our family or our values. We are cooperating fully with authorities." Even his groomsmen turned on him. Brad gave an interview claiming he'd always thought Tyler was sketchy. Chad posted an apology to Samantha on Instagram, begging for forgiveness. The man who'd stood at the altar 3 days ago, mocking his bride with supreme confidence, had been erased from polite society. Friday evening, Hawk found Samantha in her father's old office at the garage. She sat at Danny's desk, surrounded by his tools, his photos, his legacy. "How you feeling?" Hawk asked, settling into a worn chair. "Numb. Mostly." Samantha picked up a photo of her father standing next to a restored '69 Mustang, his arm around a teenage version of herself. "I thought watching Tyler fall apart would feel better. Like closure. But it just feels empty. He's destroyed, and I still don't have my dad back." Her voice cracked. "I still don't have those 3 years back that I wasted with him." Hawk was quiet for a moment. "Your dad used to say something. You can't change the road behind you. You can only choose the one ahead." Very fortune cookie of him. He wasn't good with words, Hawk smiled. But he was good with people. And he'd tell you that Tyler Morrison doesn't get to define your story. That bastard was just a detour. Samantha looked around the office, at the championship trophies from her father's racing days, at the framed photos of every bike he'd ever built, at the Iron Saints patch mounted on the wall like a Medal of Honor. "The lawyers called," she said. "Tyler signed everything. No conservatorship. No claim to the estate. It's all mine now. The garage, the properties, all of it. What are you going to do with it?" She set down the photo and met Hawk's eyes. "I'm going to rebuild it. Not just the garage, everything Dad stood for. This place used to be a sanctuary for people who had nowhere else to go. Vets, kids in trouble, anyone who needed a second chance. That's a big undertaking. Good thing I know 300 bikers who specialize in big undertakings." A small smile touched her lips. "Think they'd help?" Hawk laughed. Deep, genuine laughter that shook his massive frame. "Samantha Chun, you just declared war on a billionaire and won. You think we're going to say no to rebuilding a garage?" Outside, engines roared to life. The Iron Saints, preparing for their victory ride through the city. "There's one more thing," Samantha said. "Tomorrow, I want to ride with you. All of you. You sure?" She stood up, pulling on the leather jacket Valkyrie had given her, the one with her father's old patch stitched on the back. "I'm Danny Chen's daughter. It's time I started acting like it." Saturday dawned clear and cold, the kind of morning where the sky looked scrubbed clean and the air tasted like possibility. Samantha stood in the garage at 6 a.m., staring at the motorcycle her father had been restoring when he died. A 1978 Harley-Davidson FXS lowrider, midnight blue with chrome that caught the light like water. He'd planned to give it to her for her 30th birthday. She'd never ridden it, never even sat on it. Tyler had convinced her it was too dangerous, that it wasn't her style. Now, she swung her leg over the seat and felt something click into place. Needs a little work on the carburetor, Hawk said, appearing beside her with a toolbox. But she'll run. Your dad made sure of that. Together, they spent the next hour tuning the engine, adjusting the timing, checking every cable and connection. Hawk didn't talk much, just handed her tools and let her remember the hundreds of mornings she'd spent doing exactly this with her father. By 7 a.m., the bike purred like a predator. Ready? Hawk asked. Samantha looked at her reflection in the chrome. The woman staring back wasn't the one who'd stood at that altar. She wasn't the one who'd run away in a torn dress. This woman had oil under her nails and her father's patch on her back and 300 bikers waiting outside. Ready. They assembled in the parking lot, 300 motorcycles arranged in a V formation that stretched half a mile. Samantha took her place at the front, flanked by Hawk on her right and Valkyrie on her left. Where are we going? Samantha asked. Through the city, Hawk said. Past Morrison Tower. Past that cathedral. Past every place Tyler Morrison thought he owned. He revved his engine. We're going to remind this town who really runs these streets. Reaper raised his fist from somewhere in the formation. Iron Saints. Iron Saints. The response thundered from 300 throats. Samantha kicked her bike to life, feeling the vibration travel up through her bones. She'd forgotten this, the pure, primal power of it. The freedom. Let's ride. They moved through the city like a storm. 300 motorcycles rolling in perfect formation, engines harmonizing into a sound that rattled windows and stopped traffic. People on sidewalks pulled out phones. News helicopters appeared overhead. By the time they reached downtown, half the city had stopped to watch. Samantha led them past Morrison Tower, where Tyler's name was already being removed from the building directory, through the financial district, where traders stepped out of their offices to stare, down Main Street, past the shops and restaurants where Tyler had once been treated like royalty. The message was clear. The Morrisons were finished. The Iron Saints were here. When they reached the cathedral, that cathedral, Samantha slowed. The doors were closed, the plaza empty. Just 4 days ago, she'd run from this place in tears. Now she rolled past it with 300 bikers at her back, and she didn't look away. They ended at Danny's garage. The place was transformed. Over the past 3 days, while Ghost had been destroying Tyler's empire, other bikers had been rebuilding Samantha's. The garage had been cleaned, repainted, and reopened. A new sign hung above the entrance. Danny Chin Memorial Garage, second chances built here. Samantha killed her engine and stood, legs shaky from the ride, heart pounding from something bigger than adrenaline. Hawk gestured to the building. We took the liberty of setting some things up. There's a full mechanic bay for restorations, a classroom for teaching kids how to work on bikes, office space for veteran services, and a legal clinic. Bunch of the Saints are lawyers, believe it or not. They'll help people who can't afford representation. You did all this in 3 days? We're bikers, Reaper grinned. We're good at moving fast and breaking things. Sometimes we're also good at building them. Valkyrie handed Samantha a folder. These are applications. 50 people, vets, at-risk youth, folks down on their luck, all asking if they can work here or get training. Your dad's reputation still means something in this city. Now you get to carry it forward. Samantha opened the folder, reading names and stories. A veteran struggling with PTSD who needed purpose. A teenager aging out of foster care who loved engines. A single mother trying to get her mechanic certification. People her father would have helped without hesitation. There's one more thing, Ghost said, approaching with his laptop. Tyler Morrison's court date is Monday. The prosecution is building their case. But I thought you might want to see this first. He turned the screen around. Security footage from the courthouse. Tyler being led inside in handcuffs, head down, surrounded by reporters and flashbulbs. No designer suit. No confident smile. Just a broken man facing 20 years in federal prison. In the bottom corner of the screen, barely visible through the courthouse window, was another image, Samantha and the Iron Saints, rolling past on their victory ride. Tyler had looked up at exactly the wrong moment. The camera had caught his face, the instant he realized he'd lost everything while Samantha had gained the world. Poetic, Hawk murmured. Samantha closed the laptop. I don't need to watch him fall anymore. I've got better things to do. She turned to face the 300 bikers who'd rallied for a dead man's promise and his daughter's future. My father used to say this garage was for people who needed a second chance. Well, thanks to all of you, it still is. And anyone who wants to help rebuild it, rebuild what it stands for, you're welcome here. Always. The cheer that went up could probably be heard back at the cathedral. That night, after the celebration died down and the bikers dispersed to their chapters across 5 states, Samantha sat alone in her father's office. The legal papers were signed. The garage was hers. Tyler was destroyed. Everything was finished. Except it wasn't finished. It was just beginning. She pulled out her phone and opened a new document. At the top, she typed, Danny Chin Memorial Scholarship, Application Guidelines. Outside, a motorcycle rumbled past. Then another. The sound of her people, her family, her future. Samantha smiled and started typing. The bride who'd run from the altar was gone. In her place was Danny Chin's daughter, the one who'd burned an empire, reclaimed her legacy, and learned that family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was about chrome, leather, and 300 bikers who refused to let you fall. Sometimes it was about knowing when to run and when to fight. And sometimes it was about understanding that the best revenge wasn't destroying your enemy. It was building something better in the ashes.